so I visited him over the years.
Oh. All right, we are live here on Radio Road, day number 5. To start the day off, I have ESPN's reporter and one of the best guys that talks honestly about the Kansas City Chiefs, especially after the lesson he learned last year picking against them in the AFC Championship game. No, I know, but that's our conversation that we had a couple of weeks ago. Dan Graziano from ESPN joining us this morning on Radio Row on the ship. Thank you so very much for your time. And how have you been enjoying your weeks thus far? I know it's been a lot of work for you, but
yeah, it's been a lot of work, but it's been nice. My wife flew in yesterday, so we went out last night to a couple places. So we do get to mix in some fun in New Orleans with the work. But yeah,
you do.
It's a great place to have the Super Bowl. I mean, everything's so close together and kind of easy to get to. So yeah, it's been good. I like it.
How many Super Bowls have you covered now?
I think I counted up the other day. This would be 14. But what you got to remember is I covered baseball for years. So, like, I think last year's Super Bowl was when I finally got to more Super Bowls than World Series.
Wow.
So I think it's 14 Super Bowls and 12 World Series, if I remember right. But, yeah, it's I've seen some stuff.
So a lot of people don't know how you came to be to where you are at this moment. Give us a little history about your background.
So I was a newspaper writer, right? So I went to Georgetown. We didn't have a journalism major. I got into like a post-grad program at a place in St. Petersburg, Florida. It was a 6-week program right after school. I got a job off of that, an internship off of that at the Palm Beach Post in West Palm Beach, Florida. It was a 4-month paid internship. Got hired off of that. Spent 5 years there. I was the beat writer. My first beat writer job was covering the '97 Florida Marlins. They won the World Series. Jim Leland, Florida Marlins team. And it's 5 years there. Then I moved home to New Jersey. Got the job covering the Yankees for the New York Star Ledger. So like Joe Torre, Derek Jeter era Yankees. That was fun time.
Easy to go to World Series at that time.
9 years at the Ledger, and they offered buyouts. Newspapers kind of falling apart at that point. But then I got a job at AOL Fan House, AOL Sports, covering the NFL. I had done some NFL, early in my career off the internship in Palm Beach. So that's when I switched to NFL. At that point, I was kind of popping on TV here and there, doing some local stuff, and also a little bit of the inroads at ESPN, like occasionally on First Take, back when that was like a different program, a morning variety show. And then so when the AOL thing fell apart in 2 years, they laid everybody off. It was never going to last. It was spending too much money. I had made enough friends at ESPN that I was able to get, a job offer covering the NFC East. They used to have a blogger for every team.
I remember.
Right. So I was the NFC East guy. And then 2 years into that, they started a show called NFL Insiders that ran. It was an afternoon show that ran before NFL Live. And that was kind of my first TV break. So they started using me on that show and SportsCenter and NFL Live. And then, after a couple of years, Get Up came along, and that's been a big difference maker for me. But yeah, it's been quite a run. Almost 14 years at ESPN.
When you're on Get Up, and look, and some of us have to wake up early to watch it, but the cast of characters, the cast of characters, man. Especially when it comes during the football season, I know. Basically, the show is around football and basketball, and ESPN for the most part. Do you now? In this run, in this iteration of the Chiefs run over the last 3 years, you're going to go back to 2018 then, but these last 3 years, how have you seen the growth of what when you've come to town and been able to cover Patrick Mahomes and this Chiefs team over the last 3 seasons?
So, I mean, they've kind of morphed into like what those Yankee teams were, right? Like the team that kind of has a different sort of confidence, like the knowledge that they're going to win as opposed to the belief.
Yeah.
Right? So like the ability for Andy Reid to stand in front of a room full of players, some of whom maybe he's coaching for the first time, maybe they're rookies or newcomers, and convey a message that room knows is going to work because they've seen it work. Right? Like he can stand, if you lose a game you're not supposed to, this year's a bad example, but if you lose a game or a couple games that you're not supposed to, you can sit there and tell everyone it's going to be fine, and they believe you because they've been through it with you, right? So that to me is sort of what they've evolved into. It's one of the great runs in football history, maybe sports history. We have no idea if it's anywhere close to over. Like as long as Mahomes and Andy are there, like it's easy to see it continuing. But that feels like who they are now, is that team that has the certainty, the confidence to know that it can take whatever you throw at it and handle it.
And look, you are someone obviously in the press, such as myself, but when you're debating or going up against Marcus Spears or Dominique Foxworth, and they're just determined that the Chiefs are going to lose for this particular reason, you fall back on what you know. What I'm saying, what you fall back on what you told me like after the Chiefs game, like I'm not doubting Mahomes or the Chiefs, but I guess what I'm saying is that as they talked about how they won so many close games, and this is what I explain to people, because they've done that. They know how to win any which way, any type of situation, because they've been there, they've done that. Other teams, if they haven't, you know what I'm saying, that's when they start to crumble because the pressure gets too big for them.
Right. And they also excel on the margins, right? Like
Yeah.
I saw a stat at one point this year where they had, I don't know if it's still true, but they had the shortest average field goal distance in the fourth quarters of games. So what that tells you is Mahomes and Matt Nagy and Andy Reid, like if the time is running down and you need 6 yards so that the game-winning field goal is 29 instead of 35, right? Or 35 instead of 41, right? They can get that, right? So and there's so many little things like that you can look at, those extra hidden yards, the plays that he makes, you know, the throws to Kelsey where it's off script, like all that stuff that just comes with. One thing I've said this a bunch this week. One of their coaches I was talking to the other day said the thing you have to remember, and people don't realize, like they get 5 or 6 more weeks of practice every year than everybody else. So like when you look at 3 years, that the practice time they've gotten in the whole season equates to almost a full regular season. So if you have a second-year player, right, he's practically a third-year player based on how much he's practiced in their system. So that is such an advantage to them, and it allows them to work on stuff that other teams probably don't have the time to.
And that's one of the things that I joke about is that Mahomes over his 7-year starting period has essentially played 8 years because of the amount of postseason games that he's played.
And that practice time and all that stuff. I'm thinking how much more work they get to do.
Before we get you out of here,
Yeah,
he was late. You were what's your prediction on Sunday? I know you got the Chiefs, but what's your prediction and why? And do you see a high scoring game like it was?
I think it's going to be as high scoring because I think I think the Chiefs really like to have these long possessions, right? I think they like that maybe quicker, shorter stuff, especially if Jalen Carter's in the middle messing with people, you know, and he has to Mahomes has to get the ball out of his hand quickly. I think they like those longer drives. And then if the Eagles are scoring quickly, then Chiefs have a problem because that means Saquon's getting those 50-yard touchdown runs, right?
Yeah,
you can't survive that. So yeah, I think the defense will keep Saquon, you know, somewhat bottled up
in check.
Right.
It's hard to even say what that is.
I mean, as long as you can tackle him at the second or third level, which Washington and the Rams didn't, then you can do it. But I think they'll want to keep it, you know, like bend don't break on defense for that reason.
All right, ESPN Dan Graziano, what are your responsibilities for this weekend for the game?
Oh my goodness. For the game day, I'll be writing the main story off the game, like the game story or news story off the game for ESPN.com. So no TV for me on Sunday. We did get up yesterday. Some stuff on ESPN.com throughout the week and Sports Center hit here and there. Whatever they need me to do. That's how I've survived this long.
ESPN's Dan Graziano, thank you so very much for your time and have a blessed weekend, and I'll see you again in Kansas City soon. All right. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Mark Donovan, Chief CEO. I done gave